Hello there, and welcome back to the Cader. I'm Anthony Mitchell, author of several fantasy books set in the world of the Manska, and this is where I do my writing. So shall we get started? Before we begin our next writing session, here are a few rules we mean to follow. Number 1. Expect spoilers. You're about to join me in writing some as yet unpublished books from the world of the Manska, so there will be spoilers involved. However, I'll do my best to avoid anything major, mainly because I still want people to actually read the books once they're finally published. Number 2. There is an outline. That is to say, I won't be starting completely from scratch. I'm not sure it makes for engaging content if you have to sit there watching me trying to figure out what comes next, which can take a long time. Fortunately, my current technique involves writing the dialogue first, with the occasional stage direction thrown in for good measure. There are a couple of reasons this seems to work well for me, and I might do a video on that at a later date. But once I've got the dialogue down, it's then on to the next stage, which is what we'll be doing in these sessions, and that's basically adding the meat to the bones. Rule number 3. It's just a first draft. It's going to be rough around the edges, and you may see things that make your eyes bleed. If you've got constructive criticism, then by all means throw it in my direction, but just be aware that I've got 2 wild kids and a full-time job. I'm generally doing this stuff at 2 o'clock in the morning, so go easy on me. Rule 4. Time is limited. Not only do I have those 2 kids and a full-time job, I also need to eat and sleep occasionally. Add to that the challenge of making this whole thing at least semi-entertaining. I've decided to use a timer to help limit all of our suffering. Can I stick to the time limit? Well, only the muses know for sure. And the final rule, number 5, context is important. These sessions are going to be spent looking at just a fraction of the story. Before we begin, I'll provide a little context around the story being told, looking at the characters involved and the events that have led up to this scene. So with that in mind, what is the story? The Lion's Pride. That's the project we're going to be working on. And what's the premise? The Lion's Pride is set sometime before my debut novel, The Ember Child. That book tells the story of the young Halassan and his quest to reclaim his father's throne. At the opening of The Ember Child, we learn that Halassan escaped the Nara as a baby in the care of his father's champion, the old grizzled veteran Sivius. We don't learn much beyond that, but it presents a few interesting questions. How did the pair escape the breaking of the Unbreakable? How did they end up on the other side of the world? And perhaps most importantly, how did an old man feed a newborn babe in a world without supermarkets or baby formula? The Lion's Pride will answer all of those questions and more. Where does it fit in? You can think of it as a prequel to The Ember Child. But The Lion's Pride will also be the 3rd book in the Tales from a Damanskan Fireside series. That means the narrative will be broken into 6 smaller tales, each told around a particular fire on a particular night, somewhere deep in Danara. The idea being to explore the history of one or more of the characters from the main stories of Damanska. Who are the POV characters? In this case, the tales are told from the perspective of Sivius himself. Known to some as the Warlord of Cassis, the former champion of Danara is one of the deadliest warriors to ever live. He should have died on the walls of Danara beside his king, yet duty forced him to surrender that one chance at the perfect death. The Lion's Pride tells the story of that sacrifice. Let's take a look at the cast involved in the scene I'm going to be writing. First up, we've got Sivius, the king's champion in Danara, known to some as the warlord of Cassus, which may be a story for another day. He is both stoic and a formidable warrior, and he carries the famous sword, the Lion's Pride. He has reluctantly accepted the task of escorting the king's heir to safety, though he'd much rather remain in Danara fighting for his king. Next up is Halasan. He is the king's bastard son and the only heir to the throne of Danara. While the religious folk have named him the Ember Child, he is yet to show any real personality or courage. Then again, he is only a few weeks old. On to Ravia, the wet nurse handpicked by Sivius to travel with Halasan and breastfeed the baby, providing the kind of sustenance Sivius cannot. Having lost her own child only recently, Ravia is battling grief while trying everything she can to keep the royal babe alive. And finally for this scene, Father Curse, a warrior priest in service to Assisi, the goddess of war. He is a firm believer in the prophecy of the Ember Child, and that Halasan is the one. His mission now is to ensure the boys escape from Danara. Which brings us to the scene itself. What's happening as we join the fray? The Lucian army, under the leadership of the god Emperor Corin, lays siege to the city of Danara. As the strongest of Polonia's city-states, Danara embodies the last thread of defiance against Lucian dominion in the west. Caught short in their plans to escape the city before the Lucian arrival, Sivius and Ravia are forced to use the cover of a Danara encounter against the Lucian lines to slip from the city gates and make for the safety of the sea. Taking the pair for fleeing civilians, a group of Lucian soldiers attack Sivius and Ravia. As all looks doomed, Father Curse, a servant of the goddess of war, helps the pair escape, but not before Sivius takes a wound to the eye. And that's where we join our band of plucky heroes. The eye is a whole situation they need to sort out. So, as mentioned previously, I do tend to outline the story, so kind of write a paragraph or so about each scene. And this is the scene that we're going to be looking at now. So the outline for it is Sivius's eye is ruined as a consequence of the previous scene.
I lost an eye here.
Father Curse helps to seal the wound and takes the remains of the eye to mix a blood bond. That ties into the Ember Child. It's not really relevant in this story, but it kind of explains where that came from. The old priest leaves, but before Sivius and Ravia can make their final escape. A good start, I've misspelled there.
How's that even possible?
I can only apologise. It will get better. More enemy appear. So, as I hopefully also mentioned, I've already written the dialogue for this particular scene, and this session is going to be about adding flesh to the bones, filling in the gaps. I've got a 30-minute timer ready to go. I need to go and pick up my daughter from school, so I've only got a half an hour to play with. Let's give it a go, see where it takes us.
So, it begins.
The first choice here really is, do I start with the dialogue, or do I try and create the picture of the scene? In the previous scene, we see Sivius getting dragged off to safety, his eye wounded as it is. I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the dialogue. There's only Father Curse, Sivius, and Ravia here at the moment, so I need a bit more explanation than just I'm not sure arms can kick in the air.
I find that highly unlikely.
We'll revisit that at a later date. Father Curse leaned into Sivius and smiled a gap-toothed grin. sounds like a bit of a psycho. But then he is a priest of war, so, you know.
He's crazy!
This will hurt, he promised. Gritting his teeth against the pain to come. Gritting! Father Cares leaned into Sivius and smiled a gap-toothed grin. This will hurt, he promised. Sivius's fingers dug into the air. Sivius dug his fingers. The priest. Holding from priest oath. It would be better if that comes first, actually. Don't normally like to edit on the fly, but this'll work. Father Case pushed the spoon into the ruins of Sivius's right eye socket and scooped out. Scooped out what remained. He just bit his cheek, hearing metal grate against bone within his head. I'm going to try one of these. It looks very, very red.
Do you want to do some ASMR?
Ooh. It's like a chilly heat wave one, with the heat turned up to max. Nice though. Would recommend.
We now return you to our regular program.
This will he hurt, he promised. This will hurt, he promised. So he bit his cheek against the agony, hearing metal grate. Not that kind of grate, God's sake. Grate against bone within his head. Scoopes out the remains of the eye, causing severe agony. Check! And he pops the lid from a flask. So this is one of the stage directions I include in the dialogue sometimes, just to kind of give me an idea what I had happening in my head when I was dialoguing in the scene. So pop it on the other side of his robes and drew out a small, would be a glass flask. Let's just call it a small flask. Well, what's he doing with the might need to do a quick Google, bear with. Let's do eye parts. The optic nerve. This bit, I was wondering what to call the thing that connects the eye into the head.
I think there's a word for that.
I'm looking at the optic nerve, it's still connected. Of course, pushed the spoon into the ruins of Sivius's right eye socket and scooped out what remained. Holding the eyeball. Knife, produce knife. Knife with a flourish. Sivius made a mistake. That's his right eye that's been cut. So, with his good eye, he's going to go look that way and see the optic nerve. Glancing to the right. Sivius made the mistake of glancing to his right with his good eye. Though it was difficult to make out between the mists, through the mists. Mists of pain, critical vision. You'd think there'd be an older, less scientific word for the optic nerve, but apparently not. It looks like Hippocrates, the father of medicine, was looking at nerve channels between the eye and the brain way back when. Sylvia's screamed. The weather. That's my alarm to go and pick my daughter up. Let's have a check on the timer. 10 minutes left. Have I got 10 minutes? Yeah. Sirius made the mistake of glancing to his right with his good eye. Partially crippled vision. He glimpsed the sight of his second eye resting on the spoon. That is hot. He drew out a small flask. This will seal the wound and allow you to continue the journey. But it will sting a little.
She ain't lying, sir.
He's bringing it. Child was crying still. Took a deep breath. Then tipped his head back. Can you nod with your head tipped back? I think so.
Why'd you do that?
Okay. Poured in a few drops of liquid. Poured them in where, is the question. Of course, poured a few drops of the liquid directly into the empty. Is it one word? Is it a hyphen? Well, Google's told us. Eye socket. Yeah, wait, one word. Did you mean eye socket? That was a hell of an image, wasn't it?
What the? I've felt your eyes, lads!
Apologise for that. Dang. So we're going to go with two words. Eye socket. Eye socket. The child was crying still, and Sylvius refused to join him. He's already joined them, I suppose. Crying was he screamed, he didn't cry. He's not a child. He's a man of Danara. Podcast poured a few drops of the liquid directly into Sylvius's right eye socket. There was a hiss. Move the buttons with a hiss, a cloud of smoke, and despite his best efforts, Sylvius screamed again. Look at wait. Show a squeeze. Yeah, we go now. More good. That is voice. There it was. You can't go anywhere. Look at the state of him. Sirius shrugged it off. Help me up, he said. I can move. What's your eye, Sirius? It's just an eye, girl. I wonder where the inspiration for that came from.
Hardly, my lord. It's just an eye.
We all will. Get me to my feet. There we go. Hold Sirius to his feet. Red slash. I hadn't thought about this, but obviously it makes sense to get Sirius's eye bandaged. Oh, time up. I'm going to leave it there. I'll come back and finish that thought once I pick my daughter up. So yeah, I'll leave it there for now. And I'm back for another half hour. I was saying before I left, that one thing I hadn't really considered is that Sivius would have to have some kind of bandage on his eye. Whatever this stuff was that Father Curse used, it's not quite that good. So, in the Emma child, he wears a red strip of cloth around the eye. So it makes sense that Father Curse would give him that bandage. Well, not that bandage, because that would be disgusting. If it's 16 years down the line and he's got the same bit of cloth. But it would inspire him. The red cloth that is the colour of Assisi, the goddess of war. So I think I'll stick that in. Oh yeah, Father Curse hurled Sivius to his feet. Father Curse tore a strip from the red sash he wore and wrapped it on Sivius's head, covering the ruined socket, the ruined eye, the empty socket. The empty socket. Then the old priest lifted the spoon. The old priest lifted the spoon, the remains. The ruined eye. When the time comes, said the old priest. He said, this is how you find you. Don't die, Sivius. Find the boat and head for the Shattered Isle. From there you can take a ship to anywhere. Don't look back. Just survive. The call will find you when the time is right. May Assisi guide your blade ever true. Sivius bowed his head, and may she spit in the eye of your enemies. The old farewell. Sivius and Ravia press on, following a small stream that heads to the coast. They pass corpses along the way, evidence of Lucians scouring the countryside. Sivius gives Ravia a dagger. Okay, so... Sieged. IB4E, except after C. Do we all abide by that rule? I don't. Not all words do.
Your rules, you've broken their rules, you've broken our rules.
Serious. Help Rabia. Secure answer. It's harness. We call it a harness. I'll call it a harness for now. Seems a bit too modern. The child was still. They followed a small stream. It headed east, I'm going to say. Oh, I didn't start my timer. What a numpty. Let's call it 20. Let's say we're just done 5 minutes. Well, just so you got a reference. So Danara is where they've escaped from. And I think they'll be heading towards this coast on the east. The idea being to find a small rowboat, which will hopefully get them away from Danara to this island, and then from there, really, it's a mystery of how they're going to get any further. That's their next challenge. But for now, yeah, they're heading east towards this coastline, where there's going to be a small rowboat hidden away for them to make their escape. So, headed west, no, east. Never eat shredded wheat. Remember that one.
You're so wise.
Towards the coast. They passed the coast. They passed the corpses. Lining away. Women and children amongst them. Because the Lucians are proper bastards. Hold, said Sivius. Are they carrying, what kind of baggage have they got? They don't want to take much because they've got to make a quick escape. Took unlock the spare dagger. Where is this spare dagger going to be kept? He wouldn't just give her a knife, would he? Like, yeah, good luck with that. He'd have to give her the sheath. Sivius took off a spare along with the dagger sheathed. This bit probably needs a bit of rework. My mind's a bit of mush at the moment, so just wing it.
Just words!
Oh, Sivius, now we got time. He took off the spare belt. Proceeded to strap it around his waist. And I had to fight one before we go. Take that girl out, doesn't quite read right. They say it changes everything. Like starting anew. No telling how good I'll be, or how bad. But there's no losing this fight. We either win, or we die. You see me struggling. You come rescue me. Oh, it did not take long for that. Is it premonition? Anyway. It's full. Rather than just standing there, I think I'm going to have them, because obviously we've seen some bodies already. Maybe they're in the midst of dispatching another civilian. The first, this one, standing there. What have we here? He said. The other soldiers. Smiles they wore, widened a little. They spied Rabia. Their smiles only widened a little. You okay, love? Let's see. The man spread his hands. A gesture of peace. No need to fear us. We're the heroes in this story. We're here to liberate your city. Give your little one a better life. Better than fighting on the streets for the gift of a sword. Eh? Question then a statement? We don't want any trouble. To the second of the soldiers. Shall we say how many soldiers there are? 3 more. 3 of them standing on the shore. Busy watching the drowning. All 3 of them busy, he said, and his friend standing on the shore behind him, all 3 of them busy watching the drowning, turned in surprise. What have we here? He said, and his friends standing on the shore. We don't want any trouble. Looks like she needs liberating from this dirty old bastard. Man in the water. Beat it down. That wound looks fresh, he said. You had some trouble? Run us from the city. Sivius eased Ravia behind him. Right, so the timer has run out. It was only then that I noticed that my memory had run out as well, so I hadn't actually been recording the last few minutes. But you didn't miss too much. Basically, yeah, it was just these last few lines that you missed, which was Sivius eased Ravia behind him and slipped a hand beneath his cloak, resting it on the hilt of a dagger. He wants to keep this one all to himself, said the third man, approaching Sivius slowly. We're neighbours now, friend. Only right you share your playthings with us. I think you can see where it's heading. The man gets exactly what he deserves. But we're going to leave it there, and I'll see what we came up with in the session, and whether I can make it entertaining somehow, and then whether we do this again in the not too distant future. But for now, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, give the video a like and click subscribe. Otherwise, thanks for giving it a go. That'll do us for now. What is it I say? Until I see you next time, keep your wits keen and your sword sharp. Keep your wits keen and your sword sharp.